Have you gotten your stimulus check yet? Many people are looking around and they're kind of worried. It appears in many ways that the economy is falling apart. Businesses are closing. People are out of work. There's a lot of fear around how will we go on in the air of this new financial climate. But you know, there isn't much talk about how the economy is really something that we invented. Many of us are still moving forward as if the economy were the product of natural law, rather than something we just made up. How much more pain? How many more recessions, depressions, and crashes? How many more will have to go hungry each day, homeless on this planet, die of preventable illnesses? How much more suffering? Before we finally realize that on this planet, there's always been more than enough for everyone to live in dignity. What there hasn't been is a willingness to share. What is it that holds our current social, political, and economic structures in place? The image I have is of the planet being surrounded by a web of energy, an interconnected web of energy or matrix. And much of this matrix is born out of the distorted perception that you and I are separate, independent from each other and from the rest of creation. This sense of separation gives rise to fear, gives rise to a sense of inexplicable lack. It cuts us off from feeling empathy with others, from seeing another's pains and others' struggles as our own. It breeds apathy, a lack of care. It breeds a every man for himself, survival of the fittest mentality. It breeds a constant need for more. Because the distorted solution to the problem of inner inadequacy that plagues virtually every human to a greater or lesser degree, is usually focused on us trying to acquire something to fill the lack. Whether it's an external object or objects, fulfillment of a physical career goal, relationship, status, seeking to feel this sense of something is not okay within me through external means, or even psychological means. Once I am seen as this or that by the world, then I'll be okay. Even once I am seen by this or that by myself, then I'll be okay. Still exists in the realm of conceptual identity, relying on your inner sense of security to be derived from a conceptual image in your head. But all such solutions, both the physical acquisition of objects, people, places, or the acquiring and belief of some self-image, are constantly under threat. They're unstable, impermanent. Whatever satisfaction they may bring temporarily gives way to an even more intense, often, sense of lack and disillusionment, because that which we've believed would have given us some sense of peace and okayness always ends up falling short. And often has us wondering, is there any way out of this? There is a way out of this, and it's a journey that has to be taken by each individual, an internal journey primarily. And it is upon the completion of this journey in each individual that the world will transform into a new earth. But in the meantime, I believe, and many others believe, that the way to move forward as a species in the most beneficial way for us, for our environment, is an integrative approach, one that shines a light both on the root causes of our human dilemmas, of corruption, of exploitation, of suffering, of violence, war, as well as implementing better laws, better legislation, better social, economics, political structures that truly prevent, or at least help greatly to prevent such things from plaguing our species any longer. So this matrix, as I see it, is dismantled in two ways. One is the basic raising of awareness on the planet. The internet has done much to do this. It has exposed a lot of what's going on in the world to a mass audience. And in creating this global visibility for the insanities and cruelties of the world, there is a greater global initiative a greater global initiative to change things, a greater global recognition that we're kind of not maybe doing things the best possible way around here. The second part of this first part of awareness is becoming aware of the root causes of such human behaviors that produce massive wealth inequality, resource inequality, apathy, etc. It is through each person's individual journey, each person's individual dismantling of their own matrix that produces these same behaviors and patterns in them to varying degrees. It is primarily through that the larger energetic matrix becomes transformed and transmuted, because we are connected to it. Everything is interconnected. Therefore, unless you have some awareness of the underlying causes of your own dysfunction, of your own suffering, of what makes you withhold from those that truly need it, of what makes you feel apathetic towards your fellow human, towards what makes you fearful of losing yours, what makes you feel like you need to acquire something to be complete. It is through the recognition of those things in you, primarily, that the matrix or web becomes transformed. And secondly, it is through taking actions in this world. Actions that come from this new recognition. You could think of the parts of the matrix that are constructed by fear as being low vibration energy fields connected and holding these particular structures together. As you bring global awareness to what's actually going on, to what, say, corporations are actually doing, what they're doing to the environment, how they're exploiting workers. And this is now openly seen on a larger scale rather than just heard about or discussed, but seen, and its effects are seen on the environment and on people. That already starts bringing a higher vibrational frequency onto this energy that has up until now thrived on being invisible. The same applies to you. You bring in awareness. As you bring in awareness, you bring in a higher vibrational energy to the fear in you. And as you begin to walk around and emanate this energy and take actions based on the feeling of that energy, and the feeling of that high energy is the feeling of your own being. It's the feeling of yourself beyond concepts. It is the feeling of that gives rise to a sense of completeness and peace. Your actions are less apt to be motivated by a need to complete yourself, a frantic need to complete yourself and acquire as much as possible. And with that recognition of a deeper sense of identity, one beyond concepts, because you're not concept. In your head, you're the one that's aware of the concept, I think. easily recognize that any thought or concept you have of yourself is not who you are. But who is that which is aware of these thoughts and concepts? Is that itself a concept? No, because any concept you have of that is just another concept appearing in the space of this witness in your presence. So in becoming more familiar with that, you become more familiar with the completion that is always here. And as you move forward in your affairs, you're more apt to move forward from a state of completion. When you move forward from a state of completion, your actions are infused with peace. And you begin to feel the connectedness and oneness that you have with everyone else. Because as you begin to feel yourself as this deeper I, you begin to see everyone else as the deeper I as well. You no longer meet the rich person or the homeless person with a conceptual identity, and you no longer overlay on top of that, on top of the interaction. You simply look at them with bare attention. And as you look at them with bare attention, there's an opportunity for them to feel seen. Because you're looking at the being that that person is. You're looking at them without reducing them to what they may often be reduced to as, oh, this is a bum, or oh, this is some person who's made it and I'm going to try to get on his good side so I could make it as well, or something. Granted, egos can be threatened by that as well, but the point here being is you begin to feel that connectedness with yourself, and goodwill starts to flow out more naturally to you because you do begin to feel empathy and have empathy with others. So you're much more apt to then take new actions, higher vibrational actions, if you will. And as you do that, you start to ground that energy into this world, and you start to transmute the matrix even more. You start to act from a sense of connectedness. And you are naturally inclined to want others to feel that as well, and to want to help others, because you know that when you help others, you help yourself. And you can feel that. And you can then perhaps even start to implement certain ideas. I remember that it is when I finally began to infuse my work with the intention of wanting to help others. I knew I always did, but there was still a lot of ego, and there still is to some extent of needing to make it first or something, and then I'll help others, or needing to just make it to feel secure, whatever that meant, having, get on TV or get my own show or whatever. Those are still worthwhile goals, but the energy behind them has changed. There isn't that attachment for them. There isn't a need for them to happen anymore. But I noticed that when my work became about self-expression, when it became about whatever I do, I want it to be something that touches someone in a positive, uplifting way. When my performances or whatever I do throughout the day came with that quality of presence of meeting that person where they are and really seeing them and connecting with them, and realizing that that is one of the greatest gifts you can give to anyone, is to truly see them. That when I started to make my work about that, things unfolded much more easily. not only was I following a passion, not only did I get in touch with a calling I had to, which I always knew I love to perform and I love to do what I do, and that alone has incredible benefits, to simply follow a particular thing that you're called to do, regardless of whether you have it conceptualized yet that you're helping someone or not. If it's a true passion, even if it doesn't look like it as you're doing it, it will be helping somebody if it's coming from a deep place. Sometimes that may be difficult to discern, especially if you can't step out of your mind too easily, because the mind and the ego can come up with all sorts of things disguised as passion. Oh, I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to make this, I'm going to be the best, or whatever, and that could excite you quickly, and then the passion I'm talking about comes from a peaceful place, from a place that truly feels alive and stays there. Something that you just feel pulled, called to do, and there's a power behind it, not a franticness behind it. So finding and doing that and acting on that alone starts to, in my experience, starts to bring things to you, starts to attract certain circumstances, beneficial circumstances to you. Things flow to you more easily because you're in alignment, if you will, with a particular energy that wants to express itself through you. And since that energy is already there, once you join with it, so to speak, it propels out, and what comes back to you is often very surprising and undeniably serendipitous. Then the added element for me, of being of service through my work. I would say kind of this makes me think of the law of reciprocity. I'm sure we've all heard that. Something along the lines of what goes around comes around. I can't say, I'm not a fan of that particular saying, but I have to say that what I've noticed is that in giving of myself genuinely, of giving to another when I see they truly need it, or out of sincerity, not out of a feeling that if I give this to them, I'll get something back, but out of a genuine desire or sense that this is right, that they should have this, or just out of a genuine intention to be of service to this person, whether I'm performing or whether I'm talking to them, that things also begin to unfold in a much more magical way. So I'm saying all of this because this is part of bringing in this new matrix. Not only the internal work that has to be done, the bringing in the presence, the inner transformation, the stepping away from distorted perceptions and fear, but then taking that out into the external world. It's those two things rooted from the internal process. Always remember that. It's those two things combined that really start to create great change, not only in your personal life, but in the collective. Until eventually this matrix is transmuted enough that these structures simply can't sustain themselves. The template isn't there anymore for these certain structures that allow war, exploitation, environmental rape, all these things to occur. I don't think that as a species we have very much faith in ourselves, in our inherent goodness. And I think that's one of the things that gives rise to the survival of the fittest mentality that our economy is structured around. Every man for himself. think there's this belief that if everyone's basic dignities, food, water, shelter, clothing, were provided, just enough to eliminate the fear of survival, mind you, not to deprive everyone of the desire to want to expand their lives, to have nicer things or to have more expanded experiences, but just enough to cut the fear of survival out. I think we believe that we need the fear of survival in order to be great, in order to push us, to motivate us to do God knows what. Do we believe that if everyone's basic dignities were met, that no one would want to go to work? No one would want to do the necessary jobs that keep the world turning? No one would want to be the garbage man. No one would want to work at a grocery store. No one would want to farm. Well, again, if it's done in a way where it doesn't deprive people of a desire to still live an expanded experience, where they're not given too much, but they're given just enough to not have to worry about surviving, then I think many people will still have the incentive to get such jobs, because it'll add extra income and they'll be able to do more things. But if it doesn't produce enough of that, I also think we're at a time where we're able to mechanize much of these jobs. And if it were done within this new economic structure, there would certainly not be as much uproar about us doing such a thing, because you wouldn't have to really worry about losing your job. Or if you lost it, you wouldn't have to worry about it leading to homelessness or poverty. I believe that the concepts of everyone's basic dignities being met is a beautiful concept, and I think that if you really ask most humans directly, hey, if you're on a planet where everyone has enough, can you find any reason that 600 children should have to die of starvation every day? Is there any reason that these people shouldn't have a home, given that there's enough for everyone? So I don't think it's the concepts that are inherently against human nature, but from my understanding, the reason those particular systems failed is because of the ruthless implementation of these ideas. And perhaps ruthless implementation isn't the way to implement anything. But I think that if people are made to see that it is in their own best interest for everyone to have their basic dignities met, one, it would mean a drastic reduction in crime, I would have to believe. So much of the motivation behind crimes, people feeling like they have no other choice in many ways. They need to do what they need to do to survive. People who are freed of the fear of survival will then be able to funnel that energy into what is it they're really passionate about. How many more people who are now, one could say, wasting their talent on doing something that they feel they need to do to survive because they're too afraid to pursue their dream or something that they're really good at, something they could really do to contribute to this world. How many of those people would now be doing that thing and contributing and doing quality work because they'd be following your calling rather than something they dread or feel they have to do? And for those that don't do anything, so what? Yeah, there will be some that don't do anything. Why do we need them to? Does that justify us then rendering them homeless and starving? Begging for change? Is that who we are? I believe that given the opportunity to not have to worry about basic necessities, that we will seize the opportunity and rise as a species. That's my belief. But I think much of the collective belief we hold about ourselves is that we're inherently bad. And I don't believe that's the case. It is in our planet's best interests to not have millions, billions of people living in fear. Is that not obvious? It is in our planet's best interests to share, trade resources equitably, have everyone feel a sense of equality with everyone else. A sense of equal opportunity, of true equal opportunity. How is that not in your, mine, and everyone's best interest? To have a species where self-expression and the improvement of everyone's lives be truly the central driving force behind the economy in the species, rather than being the best, making the most, winning. And yes, it's okay to have more than someone else, but is it okay to have more than someone else at someone else's expense? And under a structure where everyone's basic needs are met, there will be those that have more, of course, because, again, the opportunity for expansion will still be wide open, and the desire will still be there, because I don't believe most people are satisfied just sitting around doing nothing. Most people are called to finding some kind of fulfillment in what they do in this world as well. And most people are called to experiencing all that this world and life has to offer. Yet some don't embark on that journey because they're too busy believing they have to struggle to survive. No, they don't have to struggle to survive. That is something that even someone in poverty, to greater or lesser degree, can understand, can come to understand. Certainly in first world countries, it may be not something that is applicable in third world countries, but the fear that can accompany that, whether it's someone in a third world country that lives amongst war or famine, even that, even the fear and the dread of being in such a circumstance can be transcended. That is a spiritual occurrence. Those living in an economy like the United States can also come to such a realization they don't have to struggle to survive. And they can begin acting from a different place in a different way and attracting new circumstances and the like. But that's a spiritual occurrence, and not everyone's ready for that. So why not make it easier for them? Why not simply eliminate the possibility of that fear from even arising? So the recommended reading I have for this part would be Conversations with God, Book 2 by Neale Walsche, that goes in depth about what we can potentially do to transform the economy and government and society to produce more fairness, equality, a more joyous experience of humanity. But always put in the context of it being a short-term solution, but one that can be implemented along with the long-term solution that is the shift in consciousness. And it is when that shift becomes more and more powerful that things will more easily and readily start to transform themselves. As the matrix of fear becomes freed, it is much more easy to see how things have not been working, and how so much of our attempts were misguided. There's no need for judgment or condemnation from there. There's simply the recognition we were asleep, now we're awake. How do we want to build the world from here? And the new matrix can be built. One that functions on the principles of unity, of fairness, equal opportunity, love, self-expression, expansion, joy. No room for fear. Acceptance, caring, empathy, compassion. Are we ready to build this new matrix? Most importantly, are you ready? It starts with you. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And you will see your life reflect that change. And perhaps you'll start to see it reflected elsewhere as well. So I hope you found this helpful, and stay vigilant, stay prudent, do your part. We're getting closer each day to the global embrace that many of us are longing for.